Today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in Tyrants of the Underdark. This is one of my new favorite genres of games, deck building games with a board. There's Trains, Orleans kind of has it with their bag building, Clank I love, and Tyrants of the Underdark I overlooked a little bit for no good reason, I don't know why, but I played it for the first time at Geekway and really enjoyed it. It has a lot that I could go into. It's not all that complex of a game, but it has a lot of cool mechanisms. I want to mention two specific things, though. The first is a graphic design decision that I think was brilliant. And I especially want to mention this because I've heard some criticism about the game's colors. It's very dark, there's lots of purples and blacks, which I get. It could be a little lighter, but it's underground, so it kind of makes sense. But this graphic design touch is really cool. On each of the cards, there are little dots at the bottom of the card that show you how many cards are in the deck. So if there are 4 dots on a card, that means there are 4 of that card in the deck. This takes deck building, I think, to a new and special level in this game. Because in most deck building games, you often gauge the value of the cards based on the cost. And this is really helpful when you're tired or when you're playing a game for the first time. You don't really know what to buy, but you have 5 currency to spend. And so you buy the thing that costs 5 because it's worth more. Maybe sometimes you have a decision between 2 different things that cost 5 and you buy one of them. So there's still a decision there. So I love that in deck building games. The new level this takes this to is that among all these cards that do have values on them, cost on them, that help you figure out the value of the card, of adding the card to your deck, it also has these little dots that enhance that decision. Because at times you'll be deciding between several cards that maybe you have 5 to spend, and there are 4 cards that cost either 4 or 5. But then you can look at the dots on those cards and see, oh no, there's only 1 of this card in the deck. That must mean it's really special. I'm going to go after that card. I really like this simple, clean way of communicating how many cards are in the deck. I think different games could do it for different reasons. But in deck building, this is, I think, the primary reason that you'd want to put that information in the game. And I really like that they're dots. It's not numbers, because there's lots of other stuff going on the card. Numbers can make it feel a little mathy, even if it's just a set number. But the dots are easily visible from across the table and communicate that information really well. I really like that. But that's a graphic design thing, and it isn't necessarily a mechanism. So the mechanism I want to mention is the promote mechanism in the game. In a lot of deck building games, you have a trash mechanism where you're trashing a card, you're removing it from your deck, so it no longer slows your deck down. Which I like. I like trashy mechanisms. But the promote version of the trash mechanism is even cooler. It's really cool. Because what promote does is it basically, if you have a card in your deck at the end of the game, it's worth a certain value. Almost every card that you buy in Tyrants of the Underdark is worth a certain number of points at the end of the game. Maybe 1, maybe 2, sometimes 3, if it's in your deck. But if you promote the card out of your deck, which is the equivalent of trashing, but you don't throw it away, you keep it near your deck, you're just promoting it away, you're not burdening that character with having to support you anymore, you're promoting them, it's worth even more victory points at the end of the game. So at the end of the game, you'll look at all the cards in your deck and you'll look at the number that corresponds with the in-deck victory point total, and you'll add that up, and then you'll look at all the cards that you've promoted, and you'll add up those victory points, and they can be a lot of victory points. What this does, it creates a really interesting decision in the game, because instead of just automatically trashing the bad cards, you now have a decision. Do I trash the bad cards only? Or when I get this, say I have this card that's worth 2 points if it's in my deck, but it's a really good card. I want it in my deck. But at the end of the game, it's worth 5 points if I promoted it. So as you start to approach what you think might be the end of the game, and you start getting those cards, you have to make the choice. Do I play this card because it's awesome, I want to play it, and have it only worth 2 victory points at the end of the game? Or do I not play this card? Do I instead promote it, get it out of my deck, not have the ability anymore on this turn or future turns, but it's worth a lot more victory points at the end of the game? Brilliant mechanism for trashing cards out of the deck. Adds so many different layers to that decision, and it lets you encourage players, or at least get players to think about the idea of trashing cards that have powerful abilities. Because usually when you trash cards, you're just trashing stuff that no longer fits your engine or is directly impeding your engine. In this case, they're cards that absolutely help your engine, and you have to decide, do I want them in my deck or not because of the end game victory points. Really cool. If you have a favorite trash mechanism in a game, or since we're talking about graphic design, if you have a favorite little graphic design touch that you really admire in a game, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Thanks.